When you're going on a walk in a forest at a slow pace to observe a lot of the life around you, then you'll notice more lichens. Hi, I'm Natalie Howe, and I'm a lichenologist and an adjunct professor at George Mason University. Today we're looking for lichens in Rock Creek Park. We're at the Boulder Bridge. It's a bridge made out of boulders. A magnifying lens is a window to a different world because you can see so much more of what's happening. The lichen and the soil are just way more interesting if you look at them with a magnifying lens. A lichen is a kind of fungus that gets its food not from what it's growing on, but what's growing inside it. What I mean is that it has algae or cyanobacteria that live in its tissues that make sugars. And so it can feed off those sugars instead of feeding off whatever it's growing on. There are 5,800 species of lichens in the US and Canada. There's three main ways they grow. The most diverse kinds of lichens are crustose lichens, or lichens that grow as a crust right in their substrate. They can grow right into the rock or right into the bark. The second kind of lichens, foliose lichens, they grow flat, and so you can peel them off their surface. Then there's a third kind, fruticose lichens, which are pendant or shrubby. Sometimes there are trees that are draped with lichens, and those a lot of times are fruticose lichens. When you think of the most inhospitable habitat, you can probably find some lichens there. Lichens growing on bone, lichens growing on rope, lichens growing on glass and tires and cars. Lichens can also sometimes grow on metal bridges. In Rock Creek, several of the bridges have lichens growing on them. And of course, they grow in the classic habitats of trees and rocks. They are much better detectives of the habitat than we are, and they can tell where there's just the right amount of light and the right amount of moisture. A microhabitat is a small area of a habitat that is different from the other parts of it. Bark of a tree is a habitat for lichens, but the sunny canopy is a microhabitat, and fissures of the bark itself could be another microhabitat. Rock Creek is such an amazing haven for people who live in Washington, D.C. We get a chance to step away from the pace of our city life. Connecting in your land, I think, is an important way of being a person that we don't get to experience that much in the rest of our life in cities. How we are treating the lichens in our society is also how we are treating our lungs and ourselves. Lichens are bioindicators of air pollution. If a lichen community is very diverse, that indicates that there is good air quality. And if a lichen community has only a few species in it, then that could indicate that there's bad air pollution in that area. People use lichens for testing metal pollution, because if you take a sample of a lichen, you can tell how much airborne metal there was there. My favorite way for people to interact with lichens is to get up close and personal with them. A lichen is a microcosm of the world. Part of why lichens are so amazing is because they are so resilient, and they can come back to polluted areas and come back to disturbed areas. They, in a way, represent a lot of parts of the land coming back to areas once we try and take care of them a little better. We can't plant them. We can only make a habitat that we think is right, and then they plant themselves. And I think that that's a neat metaphor for us making good habitats everywhere.